Hello and welcome to the Daily Roto Premium NBA program. This is the Monday, June
7th.
Thank you. June 7th edition. Andrew Barron here, Christopher Pacheco here. We are going to discuss NBA playoff basketball, specifically starting to preview the Western Conference semifinal series between the Phoenix Suns and Denver Nuggets, and also the Utah Jazz and the Los Angeles Clippers, who are back, baby. They made it. We should talk about that for a second. That was exciting.
Yeah.
Never in doubt.
Well, I don't know about never in doubt, but I think the better team moved on, right? I mean, that's right. And I did think that Ty Lue made the necessary adjustments, perhaps not right away, but at some point he did. And I think it made a huge difference in the series. So there's that. I thought that was pretty interesting. I don't know if I had enough faith on him making those adjustments, but he made them and stuck with them till Game 7, and even made some adjustments in Game 7 as well, like giving Kennard and Man a little bit more burn. I thought that was pretty rad to see that play out.
Yeah, it really worked. I mean, and they had I don't think many people would have the stones to just like straight remove Patrick Beverley from the rotation because he's such a he's got such a reputation as a very good defender. Luka was just absolutely cooking him, just crushed him. He shot like 65% against Patrick Beverley. He just couldn't do anything to him. Not that Patrick Beverley isn't a good defender, but he's just too small. Like Luka's a massive dude, and he was awesome. Like he was really good. But
you also noticed that Rondo also in the last couple games barely played
because he was bad.
Either because he wasn't very good, and I didn't think that it was like a Rondo Beverley. I definitely didn't think it was a Beverley series. So I thought him sitting out was like the best thing to do. I thought Rondo could certainly play, but then as you got deeper into the series, you're like, maybe not. Maybe let's just like put Arjax out there a bit more, which certainly worked out in Game 6 where he caught fire and played really well.
Yeah. Until he got a little thirsty. It was like he hit a bunch of open threes, and then it was like, oh, I'm going ISO, baby. Let's do this. And it was like, ooh, that was
maybe not. But hey, he made the necessary adjustments and they moved on like they should have. Because I'll tell you what, if they didn't move on first round against that team, it's time to do something different with that team.
Plus 450 to win the whole thing now. The Nets are like plus 160 and Utah is plus 360, but I don't know, man. Like I think we should probably talk Phoenix Denver first because that game starts tonight, just so so we can get into that. But we talked a lot this year about how Utah and LA, like poor Utah, really. They're the ones that are bummed here because they look like they were going to skate to at least the conference finals and likely the finals, I would have thought. But I mean, this is LA is a bad matchup for Utah.
Sure.
LA is very difficult to predict what they will do from game to game. So who knows? But I think there's actually pretty good value in that plus 450 there. I think they're the best. I mean, I think they're just as good as Milwaukee, and like Brooklyn, probably not as good. Harden messed up his hamstring again, like on the first play of the game. He's probably out for a while. Like hamstring pulls and tears, like those don't just like go away.
I heard a timeline for him was kind of around 2 weeks in terms of, seems like his best case scenario, 2 weeks. Remember, this is the same hamstring that he had pulled during the regular season and cost him, a bunch of games there late in the season, which I thought if he was healthy, he would have played because I thought having continuity with the other two was pretty important. And then in that series against Boston, that's essentially what they did. They were able to play a bunch of minutes together. I thought that was great. And then, of course, he goes down in the first minute, was it, of that game?
Yeah, it was their first possession.
Such a bummer, man.
It is. And then I was just like endless. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, basically, what the Bucks then did. And the rest of that game was like, oh, they're going to cruise. Like, this is great. And no.
And then not so much.
But I mean, just Giannis being scared of Blake Griffin, that blew my mind.
Yeah, and then remember that DeAndre Jordan conversation that we had. It turned out to be meaningless because if he wasn't going to attack Blake right, then it's like, okay, so then why would they bring DeAndre into the mix?
Right. Yeah, Blake was doing fine defending Giannis, so it's like, his offense is better than DeAndre's, so keep him out there. And his offense is a little bit more useful now without Harden.
Yes.
If it's Harden, Kyrie, and Durant out there, there's kind of no point in having Blake because he can't shoot and he can't you just want another floor spacer out there, really, which is why they missed Jeff Green. But
hey, he made 4 threes in that game, man. You be careful about how you speak about Blake Griffin there.
Yeah, it's turned back the clock on Blake Day, so good for him. Giannis actually had a pretty good game too. He scored a lot, but it was just Middleton and Holiday didn't really have it going. They should turn that around. I mean, they're a 1-point favorite on the road in game 2.
Is that? Oh, okay.
Yep.
I hadn't noticed that. Yeah, that makes sense, I guess. They should have. I thought they should have at least competed way more than they did in that game. I was surprised, just like I think everyone else was.
Yeah, because for a while it was like, okay, they're running bad. They're just shooting like trash from 3. Mm-hmm. And then that stuff evened out eventually. And Brooklyn started missing a bunch of threes, but they just, I don't know, Blake just went nuts and Giannis wasn't dunking on him every play. So it's interesting. Noel has a list of questions about Porzingis and Chuma, the 2 best players of the league, which we will absolutely get to as soon as we finish this talk about the Phoenix Suns and Denver Nuggets. This is a series.
This is a series.
It's a series. I think Phoenix should be pretty heavily favored here. They're definitely, they're they're not the same as Portland, obviously, but sort of similar pieces somewhere. They have way more depth. They have way more wings, but it's the way the offense runs is kind of similar. So I think they're just going to be able to do whatever they want, but they're considerably better defensively than Portland is. Pretty much everywhere. And, Portland's okay defensively when Nurkic is out there, but he got into massive foul trouble. I think that's the one path Denver has to making this a competitive series is if Jokic can get Ayton in foul trouble. I think if Ayton's out there, they're kind of screwed. And which is funny because we make fun of him. Oh yeah, people picked him over Luka. He's a very valuable player and very important in this series. And they similarly have no backup centers that that have any business being anywhere near Nikola Jokic. And if he gets into foul trouble, I think Denver's going to be all right. If he doesn't, I think this is a bloodbath. What do you got?
Bloodbath in terms of Denver's not going to be able to hang around for much of the series.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So judging by the regular season series, this was awesome in terms of these games were always pretty damn close.
Yep.
Phoenix was able to win one of these, the first one in January. But then both of the other games, the Nuggets won, and it was an OT. So these were highly contested games, which, it's obviously also different because back then Denver had more depth and better guards and a completely different situation. And, I do think that a lot of this comes down to the Jokic matchup against Ayton. But ultimately, I think Jokic could go nuts. He could score 40 real-life points, efficient. He can go bananas.
Yep.
It's the others. It's what else happens after that. And I think, Phoenix presumably will do a much better job at that. Specifically, defensively this season, they ranked 6th in points per 100 possessions allowed per cleaning the glass. In the playoffs, they're ranked 3rd, but that Lakers matchup was just a little bit funky, and they didn't have AD for some of that, and you know what I mean. So, I'm not really counting that too heavily, but this is a good defense. It's a really good defense.
Oh yeah,
and I feel like they are going to do such such a better job at staying home with the other guys. Because really, if you just allow Jokic to do his thing scoring wise, he's super damn efficient, and you're not going to be able to do a whole lot about that. But it's about Monte Morris and Michael Porter Jr. and all these other pieces doing what they did to Portland. That can't happen. Yep. I think Phoenix will do much better against that, and they should be able to win this series. I know they are like minus 205 favorites in terms of the series betting on FanDuel Sportsbook. So that's the expectation. The expectation is that Phoenix wins this one.
Yeah, I think that's right. And Portland largely tried that strategy too, where they were like, okay, like Jokic can do his thing, like whatever. Yeah, score 40 real life points. We're guarding him one-on-one. We're trying to take away the other stuff. They did not do a good job at taking away that other stuff. They did it first, and like there were a couple games, but like you were saying, they've got Bridges versus MPJ is a considerably more daunting situation here. Like he's going to be able to stop him from just going absolutely nuke, because Portland didn't really have anyone capable of doing that. So I think that he is going to have a tough series. So I'd be looking to play less of him than maybe I did last time. And then the guards, it's weird. Like Phoenix has better defensive guards generally too. I mean, certainly than Portland. Portland's just tiny, and there's tons of them. And so the Denver guards, like whether there was an Austin Rivers game, there were a couple Monte Morris games. Like I don't see that happening as much this series. But we'll see how it goes.
Well, I thought at some point the loss of Jamal Murray, at some point it's just going to cost you. He was easily one of their best players in the bubble last season, and in the regular, he was also pretty damn good during the regular season last year too, but turned it up when it got to the bubble. And the thing with Denver is it's just like, I would like to stop talking about their guards, because Jokic generates so much of the offense that you're noticing that, okay, maybe it doesn't matter that much what guards they even have out there. In my opinion, that has certainly been the case up until this point. Like I think at some point it's going to show, and I think this is the series that it very likely will show. And that's nothing against Denver. Also nothing against Jokic, because he's a phenomenal player. He's also, this isn't even close, I think he's the best player in the series. In the two teams, it's pretty obvious. It's just that there's also I think you would agree there's a pretty big gap too in terms of, okay, Phoenix has the number 2 and number 3 best player as well. And then I guess you could argue that Michael Porter Jr. is that fourth best. But I'd pick Booker and CP3 as the 2-3 in the series, and I think that's pretty obvious too.
And more importantly, like players 3 through 8 on Phoenix are like twice as good as players 3 through 8 on Denver at this point. Other than backup center, which obviously they're really struggling at, Saric and Kaminsky. Like if Ayton gets in foul trouble, Denver, there's a chance. That's how it would happen. But I also think like Jokic's defensive limit, this is really tough for him, going to be really tough for him defensively, because it's Chris Paul, who's like the smartest player to ever play in the NBA, other than, I don't know, I guess Rondo's up there too. But, like that was hyperbolic, of course, but one of the brighter players ever. And like just he's the point guard. Like he sees those angles. Lillard obviously is a very deadly player in pick and roll himself, but it's different. He's not the passer CP is. And more importantly, Nurkic is a really bad finisher. Ayton is a really good finisher. So that's trouble. That's going to be difficult for them. I don't know.
So for you, there's from what I'm hearing, there's not a whole lot of value in terms of betting Denver here.
I don't really see it. I mean, obviously I don't know the future, but I think Phoenix should, and then there's like, can Jokic get Ayton into foul trouble, and is CP hurt still? Those are the variables here. Otherwise, I don't think it would be particularly close. Also, can Devin Booker shoot threes now? Is that a thing? Because like, if so, Jesus, he's went 8 for 10 from 3 the other night, setting a season high by several. I think he hit 6 in one. He hit in 6 once
in the first quarter or whatever.
He
went nuts.
I mean, in the whole season, he hit 6 once. That was his previous high. He hit 5 3 times, and then he's not a 3-point shooter really, and he just went absolutely unconscious from there. I don't expect that to continue, but Booker should be able to do whatever he wants to. Like the Denver's pick and roll defense is just really ugly. So, and Phoenix's pick and roll offense is incredible. So I just think Phoenix is going to be able to score a ton. And, can Denver put up some points? Yeah, they'll have some games, but I don't think it's certainly not the Portland matchup again for them.
No, it isn't. It isn't. I was surprised that they beat Portland, and then afterwards you look at things and you're like, oh, okay, like this all kind of makes sense. I would be pretty damn surprised if they were able to beat Phoenix. I understand that they're a high seed in the West, and they also finished out the regular season pretty strong too, even with all those injuries. But I'd be surprised if they beat Phoenix, and beyond that, having to face one of Utah or the Clippers feels bad. I would certainly much rather watch the Suns against one of those other two teams.
Yeah, same. Yeah, Utah would just eviscerate this team. That would be really ugly. And the Clippers should, but who knows? Because it's the Clippers.
Because of the Clippers. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. DFS-wise, anything you think that's going to be particularly different about either team's rotation? Any sort of like value you're finding here? Any price tags you like on them yet? Or I don't think there's a ton of like changing up in how they actually run the rotations themselves. There is the possibility that Will Barton comes back at some point, but it doesn't sound like that's tonight.
Yeah, and the same thing with PJ Dozier. Like it seems like maybe those guys are going to be able to get back out there at some point. I just don't know when that would be the case. But when that happens, we'll get there. Their guard rotation would certainly be different if they were able to get those guys in there. I mean, you don't have to play as much Austin Rivers. You don't have to play as much. Marcus Howard is the other guard that they play, kind of as a tertiary dude who's been pretty darn good for them, in a pinch. But he, that playing time is going to evaporate if Barton and PJ Dozier is able to get out there. I certainly wouldn't expect like different things in terms of the rotations for these two. I definitely think the Jokic matchup sucks for the backup centers, as you alluded to. They just don't have one that's a capable one. It's essentially the same thing as Portland. But it's possible that if one of them struggles, which probably will, say it's Saric at first, I think Kaminsky will get we'll get the shot after that. If it's Kaminsky that gets in there first and struggles, then Saric might be able to go out there and play some minutes. But I would think that they're going to try to match as much in with the Jokic minutes as possible, as long as there's no foul trouble, right?
Right.
But if he does, it's going to be a tall task, and I think you might be able to see both of these backup centers in that rotation, not at the same time, and potentially not in the same game, but kind of what you saw in that Portland series where Cantor just wasn't getting it done. Okay, let's just go to something else, right? I think that's what you would see with Phoenix in this scenario, but I think they're cooked either way. Outside of that, I'm expecting very similar minutes rotations from that Lakers series from this Phoenix team.
I'm with you there. I think like Ayton I think he has upside to play like some 40-minute games here. And I also think he's going to have like a really good offensive series, low key. I think his usage was real low in the Lakers series. Makes sense. They're just huge and like pack the paint. Denver's not really doing that. And I think he's going to slip on those roles. I think because if they don't, right, like if Jokic drops to try to stop Ayton primarily, like does a lot of like heavy dropping back to like worry about Ayton mostly, then like Chris Paul or Devin Booker walks into an elbow jumper, which they're incredible at, and you don't want to give that up. So does Jokic stay closer to the screen and try to bother a little bit? He's got great hands. That is the thing that he's best at defensively, is making turnovers. Like he is good at that. So he'll probably try to get up and like bother the action a little bit more, and then Ayton slips to the rim and it's game over. And Ayton's not a bad passer out of the short roll either, right? Like if he gets totally clear of the two guys up at the screen, like the help's going to have to come from the corners. And Phoenix, unlike Portland, Portland's whatever. Phoenix has, it's going to be Jay Crowder or Bridges or Cam Johnson in either corner when that happens. So whichever one of those guys, leaves to come help with Ayton. If Ayton doesn't have the pass to the dunk, then he gets the assist to the wide open three. I think it's going to be a real struggle for Denver defensively. So we'll see. But and Ayton, I also think like he really stopped doing much DFS wise once Gasol started playing, and like that's just not going to be the case with Denver.
What are your thoughts on how Devin Booker is going to be defended in this one? I thought the Lakers
poorly
tried to send a bunch of double teams and traps when it made sense. Denver doesn't really have a one-on-one guy that can just kind of take him up, just straight up. I think that could be Barton if he can go out there, but my goodness, that would be
but he's been out for how long? Hamstring problems,
oh yeah, hey, you're back. We're gonna put you on Devin Booker like right away. That sounds horrible. So,
it could be Aaron Gordon, but then he's also like a reasonable help. Then you don't really have any help coming to the rim, and then it's just even more Ayton. I don't know. Like they're it's sort of whatever they decide to do, they are leaving a hole somewhere else, and
feels like
it's going to be able to exploit it.
It feels like it. Also, remember that the Lakers were, I would say, pretty significantly better defensively than Denver ever has been, even in the regular season. Like the Lakers were one of the better defenses, whereas Denver was trending more towards being league average, or a little bit better than that in terms of points per 100 possessions. So it feels like a just a better matchup for a lot of these Phoenix guys. So they should, someone like Booker and CP3, as long as he's healthy, or even Ayan, as you alluded to, they could have some pretty big games in this series.
Yeah. I would not be, whatever. It's such a small, their slates are so small now anyway that, like, of course this is true, but I would be playing one of those three at the very least. And I think CP and Ayton is like a reasonable correlation. If CP gets like literally 5 times to him, like that's conceivable on those roles. I think that Ayton is going to have a much bigger offensive role in this series than he did against the Lakers. So we'll see how that goes. Utah, really good team. The bracket just did not break well for them. I don't know. They're going to face the Clippers, who, listen, I think Utah is favored in the series. Like, they deserve to be. Like, they've been awesome this year. They've been really, really good. The home court thing is real. This is basically the best home court, or second, and the worst. Like, because the Clippers, not only does no one care about the Clippers, like, people in LA like actively dislike the Clippers too. So it's like they have like they just don't get a home crowd really ever. So it's maybe the best and the worst. So that's a thing. But I don't know, man. The way that the Clippers play defense is really tough for Utah to do what they want to do. And then I also think on the other side of the ball, like why Utah's defense is so effective is also a little bit playing into the Clippers' hands. And this could just come down to being, and probably will, especially at the end of the games, an isolation contest. Donovan Mitchell, wonderful isolation player, but he's not Kawhi Leonard. So I kind of think it's going to come into like those two having a mid-range shooting contest, and I would take Kawhi there.
Yeah, because of how lethal he is in those situations. And we saw it in that Dallas series as well, especially towards the end. He just kind of took over, was extremely efficient as he typically is. And
awesome.
Yeah, especially just to close things out in Game 6 and Game 7. He just kind of took over, looks healthy. It is a really tough draw for Utah. It really is. But yeah, it could come down to little things like you're saying, or in this instance, it could be a really big deal that Utah has the home court advantage in this series. I certainly would expect it to be a long series. 6-7 games, almost, a shoo-in. It feels like I don't see. I essentially don't see anyone running away with this one. But I thought that when the going got tough for the Clippers in that last series, and remember they fell down 2-0 to Dallas, and they lost both home games.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, there's so much of just saying, hey, screw it, we're done, and they did bounce back in a big way, and were able to get out of it. So that's something. I personally didn't like how they just didn't defend home court at all. Lost the first 3 home games, won the last one, a game 7, but it is a game 7, and they had more experience, so they should have won. But the fact that they're not playing very well at home, I think that's advantage Utah, in my opinion. Clippers are going to have to be able to steal a game in Utah at the very least, and then win all of their home games, which I don't feel good about, given what we just saw. So, yeah, it feels like Utah should be favored in this series. The Clippers, on paper, I think, are the better team.
Yep.
Right. They are the better team. They also have the best player in the series in Kawhi Leonard, and then the argument is, do they also have the second best player in Paul George, or does that go to Utah in Rudy or Conley or someone like that? It's a tough one. It should be a long series. I think, looking at from a series betting angle, if I was to bet here, I'd certainly go towards the Clippers. Just because I like their number better. If this was flipped, Andrew, I would say the opposite. I'd just go with Utah, frankly.
Yeah, it's pretty even. So, like, if there's value, take the value, take the plus money, basically.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with the series in terms of series betting. As far as like game by game, that's different. At that point, I think Utah is probably going to be, what you think, slight favorites at home, essentially the whole series. I would expect it to be. I think the Clippers in the last series, I think they were favored in every single game. Even the road games, they were like 3-point favorites throughout. Yeah. So I think in this series, you're certainly gonna see that flip. Utah should be favored at home. The Clippers are probably going to be favored at home by a very slight margin as well.
Yeah, so game 1, it's -3.5 for Utah. So that seems about right.
There you go.
Just specifically to talk about why, like, the Clips are a bad matchup for what Utah does. Like, it's true on both sides of the ball, but I think the more glaring thing is going to be like how the Clips defend Utah's offense, because what Utah does is they have that spread pick and roll where they've got everyone out wide. Rudy comes and sets the screen at the 3-point line, and you drive, and does the help come in? What's happening in this action? Like, someone is leaving their man somewhere, and it gets found, and Utah just moves the ball around, and they take half of their shots from 3, and usually they end up getting an open one because of how that works. The Clippers switch everything, which the point of that is to, like, basically stop that initial penetration in the first place. So, like, no one has to leave. You're not rotating around. Like, there isn't that man that's left alone that someone is going to find. You can kind of stay at home. And that makes it really, really tough for Utah to do what they do. And it's going to turn into like, okay, now, Donovan, you can get the switch onto who you'd like, right? You can take your pick. Who do you, if Reggie Jackson's out there, go, that would be who you want, have his man come set the screen for you. The Clips will let you switch onto him, go after Reggie Jackson. That's a, reasonable offense, but and that's why Luka was so unstoppable. He was just doing that over and over and over again and just like crushing it in ISO. And like Utah just isn't as good of an ISO team. Like, they're a better, more efficient offense because of the passing and the threes and how devastating Gobert is as a screener and a roller. And like, that just doesn't quite work against the Clips. So I don't think we'll see Zubac. I do think they'll still stick with the smaller lineup and start. He can play some backup center, I think, but I wouldn't expect him to go back to starting. And if he does, he's definitely not closing. It's going to be like, They played the game. They played each other 3 times this year. Utah won the first one. The second one, Utah blew them out, but that was because there was no PG or Kawhi. And then the third one was like both teams at full strength. This was how it works. Serge Ibaka started. Marcus Morris closed. Like Zubac played a few minutes as a backup. But so that would be my take there. And I think, Patrick Beverley could get back into the rotation. He's useful here. He's like he can defend Donovan Mitchell a hell of a lot better than he can defend Luka Doncic just because of the size difference. So I think he'll be all right. And it just, Utah can still create good offense. Like, Rudy can roll to the basket. He's going to have smaller dudes on him. Like, he could have a good offensive series. I just think in general that, like, Royce O'Neal getting wide open in the corner every time is not really going to happen so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, what the Utah offense lacks? It's a Luka. Which outside of Dallas, right? Pretty much everyone does. But what I mean is a player of that caliber that can just ISO you to death, and he's such a big body that you can't put a little dude on him. If you do, then he kills him. Don Mitchell isn't that, right? Mike Conley isn't that. And I did think that the Clippers, especially at first, did a pretty bad job of handling that at the beginning of the series, and I thought Luka was doing a great job at finding the open dudes. Tim Hardaway Jr., Kleba, in some instances, they were getting really, really good looks from 3. They were. Some of these just were not contested whatsoever. I think that's tougher to do here because they don't have a Luka. So to your point, that
he made some unbelievable finds. Like his passes were crazy.
He did, and it's not that Utah can't do that because they move the ball. They move the ball better than Dallas does, for sure. Yep. Because Dallas really is a one-man show. It's not a Luka, then Tim Hardaway Jr., then Tim Hardaway Jr. finds another dude. It's whoever's open, take the first shot that you find. Utah will move it and will make you work, but it's just not the same thing. So to your point that this is a much tougher task for this Utah offense, it really is. They were phenomenal in the regular season, and you have to give them credit for that. But when you get to the playoffs, it's so matchup dependent.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
It is.
If it was the Mavs, I'd be starting to try to put money on Utah to win the championship.
Yeah, dude. Like they would have gotten just murdered. This doesn't mean that they're not going to be able to win some of these games and potentially win the series. Again, they are favored to still win. But I don't think it would be surprising at all to see the Clippers win here. And beyond that, I think. Would you agree that whoever wins this matchup probably wins the West?
Yeah, probably. I think they're favored, whoever wins. Unless, it's possible. Like, I think we'll see how much people's priors get adjusted because I think, as I was talking about earlier, I think there's a chance Phoenix looks really good in this series. And it's a little bit smoke and mirrors because of how bad Denver is, basically, defensively at stopping what they do. I think there's a chance that Phoenix could just go nuts and like maybe that gets put into the projection and the odds a little bit, but I think it'd be a good series against either one. Phoenix is a really good team. I do think both these teams are probably better than them.
No, for sure. Yeah, like I think it would be a very entertaining series once again. It's just like these teams, in my opinion, should be favored over Phoenix. Here's the other big one that we have to definitely take into account is CP3's health. I certainly think that he's playing at less than 100%. In all those games that he played against the Lakers, he wasn't anywhere near the 100% mark. And even at the very end of that series, he was still kind of grabbing at his shoulder, still not playing full minutes. He's going to have to deal with this throughout the play. He'll play, but he's going to have to deal with this throughout the playoffs. There's also a chance of re-injuring, which he did in one of those games against the Lakers. So, based off of that alone, Andrew, I think you have to dock them a little bit because that team is also not the same without CP3 out there as a threat. That might not cost them against Denver specifically. It will radically change how I view them in a series against Utah or the Clippers. They would not do well against these two teams.
Yep. Another reason why we ended up having a lot of those open threes that, listen, they were tough opens, and like, I don't know, like Mike Conley is a very good passer. Yeah, he could maybe find some of those, and Donovan Mitchell maybe not, but like, some of those were like reads that Luka and CP and Ja Morant on a good day are the ones that can find, and that's about it. Like LeBron. Yeah, sure. Right. There's others, but I don't think they were like obvious looks so much. And part of why they even existed in the first place actually was because the Clips played small and Dallas went with that wacky zone and put Boban out there, like they had to help with Boban because he's just like he's a real problem. That guy's a good offensive player. He's very hard to stop. So they had to send some help. So there was like more, I think there was more staying home or less staying home than there will be in this series. Because I don't think Rudy is scary in that same way. It's not like if Rudy catches the ball 3 feet from the hoop, it's not like an insta bucket, and it is with Boban.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. I agree with that. I also think that a lot of these games, I think, are gonna be. I don't think they're gonna be very high scoring with Utah and the Clippers.
I think it's going to be a lot of sort of inefficient style offense, and it's like who can pull it off better, and probably Kawhi. I think Kawhi will have some like a lot of 53-point DK games, where it's like, is that enough? Hopefully, but I don't think we're seeing a 70 burger really in this whole series.
Yeah, I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised if we see some fantasy performance like that. I just think both teams are too good defensively, and I know they are good offensively as well, but. It's the playoffs. It's the Clippers are. It feels like they are uniquely built to stop an offense like this, and I don't think Utah's offense is going to operate like they did in the regular season, at least from an efficiency standpoint.
Right. No, I think that's true. It's just going to be tougher for them to get those shots. On the other side of the ball, let's talk about like Utah defensively, how they play and how the Clippers will play into that or work with that. They play like a style of drop. They don't switch stuff. They've got the big center. He defends the pick and roll. He drops out of it. The thing that he's so good at is he can show, he can be up at the level of the screen. He can drop. He can go all over the place. And he's very mobile. And obviously, he has like a 9'7" standing reach. Like that he shouldn't be allowed to play basketball, basically. So like he's so long and really athletic that he is, and he can be exploited in some of them, like a Dame Lillard pick and roll is like not something that he's going to be great at guarding, but he is very good at it in general. And because he's so mobile and so much more effective at covering ground, they don't need to send as much help from the corners. Like if the guy gets through, if the penetration happens, because Gobert can recover so well. So they don't allow any corner threes, basically. They were the best in the league at stopping those, and a lot of that is because you can stay on your man because you have the faith in Rudy Gobert, and they kind of funnel everything towards him anyway. You can take above the break threes. What they really do is they do a really good job forcing teams into mid-range jumpers and a bunch of floaters, right? Like you go towards the basket, and then Rudy's there, and you can't get a layup, so you got to put it up from 8 feet or whatever.
Right.
The problem with this that sounds great. That's a wonderful schematic defense. It does wonder. I think they were first or second in defense this year. The problem is Kawhi Leonard is great at mid-range jumpers and floaters, and he likes to take those shots, and he will. And are they the most efficient shots in the world? Like, no, not necessarily, but like he's pretty damn good at them. So he was a little down on it in general this year, actually, with those. But I think he's gonna be. He has a bit of a better matchup than PG. I mean, like Utah will let you bomb from above the break, and PG will do that a bit, but he's not quite the like mid-range guy. He does a fair amount of it, but I think Kawhi has a bit of a better offensive matchup. He'll probably get Royce O'Neal glued to him, but I'm not really super scared of that. They're going to force him into tough shots. He's really good at taking tough shots.
Yeah, he is, and the usage rate for Kawhi in that Dallas series continued to grow on a per game basis. and Paul George's, it was still in the 20s, but you could kind of see that they were just kind of letting Kawhi do his thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this is another series where that will continue to happen. Used to trade in the 30s for Kawhi. That is the new expectation for him. I changed his usage rate already in that Dallas series to 30%, and I think you're going to see a whole lot of more of that in this series because of what you're mentioning there. It's such a good fit for what he does well. And I also don't think it matters who's defending him. It really won't matter. The other part of that is how you were saying that Utah doesn't really allow those corner threes, and they're very good at defending that. And you mentioned that they were the best defense in the regular season per cleaning the glass. You're correct. On points per 100 possessions allowed, they were number one in the league. So this is certainly a really good defense, but those corner three guys for the Clippers tend to be someone like Marcus Morris, and his usage rate last series was already kind of cratering because of Kawhi having to do so much, and also Morris just didn't have a good shooting series, especially in the beginning. But this doesn't strike me as a Marcus Morris, Reggie Jackson, those type of guys series. It feels like if we talk about the Clippers winning this series, it'd be because Kawhi had a really big series. It's not going to be because Reggie Jackson played hero in one of those games or Marcus Morris ended up having a huge game. I think a lot of that is Kawhi and Paul George as well. PG-13 is not as good of a mid-range guy as Kawhi is, and that's nothing against him. It's just because Kawhi is so damn good at it, but he can do it too.
Yeah, and he's a better three-point shooter than Kawhi. It's like he's from way out there. Like he's the man.
So I would expect him to also be able to find some offense in this series. So I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about the rest of the Clippers.
Right.
I think Nicholas Batum is the other corner guy for them as well in this offense. It's going to be tough for those guys to find not looks, but open looks, good looks. And then Subats is the other talking point on the Clippers, and we'll see kind of right away what their intentions are with Subats, because you're right, they shouldn't start him. I'd be interested to see if Ty Lue makes that adjustment right away in terms of not starting him. If we see that he's starting, it's not that I'm going to project him for 30-plus minutes, but it's one of those things that it's like, okay, he might just play 20 or so in the first game, which I don't think it'd be smart. I think that's certainly advantage Utah in that case. But I think given what Ty Lue saw last series against Dallas and how bad that was against Luka, I'd be surprised if he doesn't make that adjustment right away.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, maybe they just go and try it just to see how it goes, but they didn't do it in that game they won against Utah. So, like, I think they know that they can't do that. And, like, look what happened to poor Jovel last series. Like, I love the guy. Like, he's a fun dude. One of my favorite DFS plays. He had that great game one. It was like he got Rudy in foul trouble, was really crushing it. He can put up his offense. And then every game after, once Mitchell came back in, he had 130-plus defensive ratings every time. Like, Utah just went nuts on him, and it's because you can't play centers defensively against Utah. Like, it just doesn't work. So I don't think the Clips will do it, and the Clips have the kind of like that Utah offense was so deadly this year because of all the open threes, and a way to slow that down is to just switch everything 1 to 5 basically, and they can do that. And do you think Pat Beverly will start over Reggie Jackson, or do you think they keep going with Jackson for now? I think Beverly will get back into the rotation at least.
I think Beverly will get back into the rotation. I think what we'll see is they're going to take game one and start Jackson would be my best guess, especially given how well he played in that last series. Mm-hmm. The thing is that you have Rondo and Beverly coming off the bench, and like you really realistically should only play one of those dudes. In one of those games, they tried to do like a Beverly Rondo thing, which I thought was horrid, and you should never try it. But then Ty Lue went away from that pretty quickly, which I thought was definitely a smart thing to do. But I think you can see
too many lineups without shooting. It's like they have these good shooters everywhere. It's like, why would you play these lineups where you have like 3 non-shooters that you don't have to guard out there? Because I think Zubac was in that lineup too. It's like, what are you doing, dude?
It was bad. It was a bad one, like a really, really bad one. I don't think they should try that one in this series. I certainly think that Mann will be in the rotation, and I think that Kennard should be in the rotation. Maybe not play him like a bunch of minutes off the bench, but play him some, like he did in the Game 6 and Game 7 against Dallas. I think that makes a whole lot of sense in this series too. Here's the other one. Ibaka was actually doubtful yesterday for that game against Dallas. Seems like he's getting closer to returning. Yep. How do you feel about him, one, getting back into this rotation, potentially, and 2, maybe just outright starting? Do you think that's better than Zubac?
Yeah,
starting?
Certainly better than Zubac. I mean, it's like kind of Ibaka and Morris, to me, are pretty interchangeable at this point.
Okay.
I mean, Ibaka doesn't, he's not going to he doesn't have as many. He can't create his own shot offensively like Morris does, but they don't really need that. And they're pretty somewhat similar. I mean, Ibaka is more of a help guy. Morris is more of a one-on-one guy, but I think defensively, it's not like a huge difference. And Ibaka can stand in the corner and get guarded at least,
Yeah, because Morris in that series against Dallas, he wasn't creating anything for himself. To your point, that he can at times, he did in the regular season, especially in games without Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. But once those dudes come back into the fold, he's a corner guy, and he just won't even dribble. So I guess Ibaka could certainly play the same exact role. I think defensively, you're right. It's not that it's a meaningful difference. I think Ibaka has a better reputation around the rim simply because he's taller and was a great shot blocker. Once in his career, but not necessarily sure you need that against this Utah offense. You don't need a big. You'd rather, I think, play a bigger wing, which is what Morris and Batum are. Yep.
No, I think that makes sense. That's a good call. Yeah, they don't get to the rim a ton, Utah. It's not like how they if this was against Memphis or something, then you'd kind of rather have Ibaka there to be, or Washington, or these teams that just, it's all guys that need to get to the rim all the time. That's not really Utah as much. They're more about shooting threes. So
it could also be Ibaka over Batum, by the way. It doesn't have to be Ibaka over Morris, because Batum is essentially playing that I don't know, the center role or whatever you want to call it in this Clippers team right now, because he was the sub over Zubac once Zubac returned to the bench. If Ibaka does return, then I think you do have a bit of a logjam in terms of, I don't think you want to play both Zubac and Ibaka in this series, so they might just decide to play one of them. We're just going to have to see, one, whenever Ibaka is able to get out there, and then 2, how they handle that situation. Because I don't think you see both of them, certainly not in the same game. And I think at some point, Ty Lue might just decide on one guy over the other.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Batum was awesome in that series. He might have been the best at actually guarding Luka too, which was kind of wild, because Morris was playing the 5 mostly defensive. He was the one usually standing near Boban. They had moments where they had Reggie Jackson. They put Reggie Jackson on Boban, and then it was we're just going to double if the ball comes near him. But sure, you try to stay there for a little bit. It does sort of make sense now that I think about it to bring Pat Bev in slowly and have him come off the bench and just go to work on Jordan Clarkson. That's something you can do and do well. Get your confidence back that way. Maybe Rondo kind of gets out of the rotation. I think that might be smart.
Yeah. Especially in this series, if what you're saying is right, and Beverly does have a role, I don't think that Rondo and Beverly can both have a role on this team.
Yeah,
it's almost too similar. I mean, Beverly's better defensively, but it's almost too similar of a role for both of those guys to be in there, and then they certainly can't play together. I mean, that makes no sense.
Right. I want to shout out my buddy Charlie, who had an atrocious text thread with some of my friends. And he had the atrocious casual fan take about PG being like Charmin soft and he's just a terrible player. And I was like, what are you talking about? He was like, the guy he's awful. So I went to look up some numbers, to be like, all right, well, I'm going to dunk on you, but I'm going to make the case as intelligently as possible. It was like, okay, yeah, he shot 42% from three on 31% usage this year. Like, that's pretty good. He was 12th in the league in estimated plus minus from dunks and threes. So like, yeah, he's the 10th or 12th best player in basketball. And then I was like, oh, and I know that he has like an insane net rating too with Kawhi. And I went to look it up, sorted through the NBA.com stuff, the 2-man lineups.
Yeah.
Of lineups that had played at least 1,000 minutes together, so 12 minutes a game or something, a fair amount of playing together. Kawhi and Paul George were the second highest 2-man combo net rating, plus 17.6 points per 100 possessions when they're both on the floor together this season. So yeah, Paul George is pretty good. But I will say the funny thing, they were second to the combo that they were second to, Rudy Gobert and Joe Ingles.
I would not have guessed that. No shot I would have guessed that.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. If you take it down to like, put it to like 500 minutes or something, so it's all these ones that like come in here and there. Like the top 7 are all Utah. It's pretty funny. But then Kawhi, of the teams of like 2-man combos that play a ton together, it's Rudy and Ingles and then Kawhi and PG. PG's awesome. Very good player. Yeah. He's just been like really open about it. I think he gets kind of in trouble because he's so like honest. I feel like that's happened to me before. I don't say too much.
Yeah, he certainly is really honest about the whole thing. I mean, kind of stinks. I do like both of these teams. I like a lot of their players on these teams, but I feel like my rooting interest is on Utah, simply because I really like the way they play. I really, really like the way they play, and I'd love to see them. I'd love to see them in the finals, just purely from a rooting interest. No betting, no nothing, just rooting. I'd love to see this team in the finals playing against Brooklyn or Milwaukee or one of those. I think it'd be a fantastic series. I think you could say the same thing for the Clippers. It's just that my rooting interest is tied to Utah.
Yeah. It's weird for me because these are the two teams actually that I have ridden hardest for as far as like these are better than you think teams all season, and for a couple seasons with the Clips. But with Utah, I remember fairly early on in the season, we were maybe 3 weeks in, and I was just like, holy shit, have you seen what Utah is doing to teams? Like, this is absurd. And they were like first in net rating by like 10 points for the first month of the season or something. They were just absolutely destroying teams. And that was like, oh, they totally changed how their offense works. And they're just like literally taking half of their shots from three and just like it's all pick and rolls. And Rudy's having this unbelievable season. And it was like, okay, Utah's kind of for, and Conley is healthy and playing well. And Utah's kind of for real here. That is actually a question mark too. Conley's hamstring is still acting up. We don't really know. Like they were destroying Memphis. So in that last game, so it's like maybe they just didn't bring him back in for that. And now he's had a week off. So, I mean, that's actually a big thing too. Utah is considerably better rested than LA, who just had like a nightmare 7-game series, got all they could handle from the Mavs, and played their last game 2 days ago. Utah's been chilling for a week.
Is the next game on Thursday, or is it tomorrow?
It's tomorrow, I believe. I'm relatively certain.
Yeah, it is tomorrow, 10 p.m. I guess I noticed game 2 is on Thursday. Don't think that will matter a whole lot simply because the Clippers got out of there healthy. So don't think it will matter, but for Utah, it might matter given what you're saying about Conley. That might matter.
They were super gassed, everyone at the end of that game 7. Like it was. Yeah, I think Hollinger called it the drunkest 5 minutes he could remember seeing. Something. It was. I mean, everyone was just like, oh god.
Yeah, like finally this is over, and we're really freaking tired. I mean, those dudes were playing 40+ minutes in a lot of those games. Kawhi, PG, even Marcus Morris got in there for a couple 40+ minutes games. It can take a toll, especially when it's so quick here, like such a quick turnaround. I mean, that might affect. I don't know. It might affect the first couple of games. between the Clippers and Utah. Maybe that's an angle that's worth exploring, because Utah is at home. So I think that, I mean, it might matter. I don't think for the series it'll matter a whole lot. I think the Clippers will be just fine.
Right. Yeah, I think they will be too. But yeah, maybe the first game or two, especially going to Utah where there's the altitude. Yes. You're a little cooked. Yep. I actually think, to maybe briefly touch on this, since there is it's the other game tonight in the Milwaukee and Brooklyn series. I think that's one of the things that's going to be the biggest problem with Harden going out is the sort of general fatigue that will start to set in. I mean, Kyrie played almost 45 minutes in regulation last game. He sat for, he sat for 53 seconds in the first half. Yeah. And then he sat for 1 minute and 3 seconds in the second half, and then didn't play the last minute and a half because the game was out of reach. But yeah, Kawhi basically would have played 46 minutes if the game was competitive. Durant played 40, and Durant, I think more so because, he's a little older, he's coming off of these major injuries. And now, he was going to have sort of all he could handle defensively in this series anyway, just because they need some help defensively, and he's okay at it. And then but now his offensive role is also considerably higher than it was without Harden. So yeah, I think that might start to wear on them a little bit. They're not a deep team anymore. And some of the stuff that they were doing was not whenever Claxton was in there, that was the Giannis layup line, just going through him. He's just too skinny. Blake was awesome. I don't know what to say. That really shocked me.
Yeah, no, for sure. The counter to that would be for Durant mostly. Kyrie missed some games, but Durant and Harden ended up missing more than Kyrie, simply because I don't remember Kyrie actually being really hurt.
I don't think he was. I think throughout the regular season. Stuff, yeah.
He missed some games, personal stuff, had really minor injuries here and there, but he was able to play through a lot of that stuff. Had a finger issue that did sideline him for a couple games, but it was nothing major in any of these. So the counter to that would be they're pretty well rested for this situation. So in theory, they should be able to take it on. So there is that, but also they need to do that because they're not as deep, right? So the Harden thing is that's where I think it comes into play in terms of Durant and Kyrie will have to play more. They have to take on more of the offense. Yep. There's nothing else to do here, right? I mean, Mike James will play a bigger role as we saw that game, or stuff like that will happen, but it has to be Durant and Kyrie, right? They have to, otherwise they're not getting out of this.
They took 25 and 26 shots respectively. That was the offense.
Yeah, so there's your offense, right? And Durant is such a lethal offensive player that, yeah, let's do that for as much as we can. Yep. Makes all the sense in the world to me. I am still just kind of, I don't know, I'm kind of baffled at Coach Bud for Milwaukee and the stuff that he does.
Why was he would take Giannis and Lopez out at the same time? That makes zero sense to me.
Yeah. Here's the thing, man. You can make mistakes, right? We all make mistakes.
Absolutely. I'm nasty at making mistakes.
We're elite at that, right? And we'll make bad calls, stuff like that. But the thing is, you got to be able to adjust. And if you don't adjust, then what are you doing? As a coach, you're gonna make mistakes. It's just a matter of if you adjust it or not. So I certainly hope that they adjust for that in this game and beyond. Because what you mentioned there just didn't make a whole lot of sense. I know that some of these dudes were on pace kind of to play high 30s minutes. My question to you is, why don't they play 40-plus minutes? I've never understood that about Bud, and I think it has cost them in some of these series. And I'm going to tell you something here, just between the two of us. It's going to cost them again if he just refuses to play these dudes monster minutes. I mean, if Kyrie and Harden are playing, or Durant, are playing that many minutes, you got to almost match it, don't you?
Yeah, I think so.
Isn't that the counter? Isn't that the counter? Like, you can't play your bench dudes in that situation against Kyrie and KD going nuts. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
It really doesn't. PJ Tucker played a lot because, so it was not Giannis really guarding Durant. It was mostly Tucker. Tucker does a credible job on him. Like, he makes it hard for him. So, Tucker's still not going to do anything DFS wise. He'll take 4 shots or whatever.
No,
so you're not really worried about that, but that is interesting that's sort of how they went. It just, I don't know. They took out Lopez and Giannis, and put Bobby Portis in, 5 minutes into the game. They were in by 5:50.
Yeah.
Both Giannis and Brook were out of the game, and you had Bobby Portis and Bryn Forbes in there. And it's like, that didn't go well defensively, guys.
No, it certainly didn't. I also thought Jeff Teague played a little bit too much for my liking. Played a little bit too much in this game. Like, he also ended up getting the 3-minute 40-second stint to just cover the blowout or whatever. But before that, he had played at least 8-9 minutes.
He ran a full 9-man rotation.
Got to cut that down, man. You got to be able to cut that down. Brook, to your point here on Brook Lopez, he was doing whatever the hell he wanted.
Yes, he had 5 offensive rebounds in the first quarter. Brook Lopez is going to could be a huge part of this series. That's the no Jeff Green. No Jeff Green means you can play Brook Lopez whenever you want. So why aren't you playing Brook Lopez more?
I didn't understand it. He was 8 from 11 from the field. Had those 5 offensive rebounds, as you mentioned. Those were also his only rebounds in the game. But he was doing whatever he wanted, and he was doing it efficiently. And he also essentially met our minutes. He was at 27.5 minutes when he got removed from the game. He would have played 30 if it wasn't the blowout. Giannis, Holiday, and Middleton would have also essentially just met our minutes projection. But Lopez would have surpassed it by at least a few minutes there. And he should have played even more than that, which is the point that you're making, because of no Jeff Green. They have to be able to adjust this. Bobby Portis can't play as much. Jeff Teague shouldn't be able to play those, because the minutes that he played were completely empty. Completely empty.
Because he's cooked. And you shouldn't play him in a playoff series that matters. I sure hope that he makes these adjustments right away. I think if he does, Milwaukee has a chance of really doing quick damage in a lot of these games. Really quickly here. Yeah. Because here's the other thing. I mean, Giannis was good, scored 34 real points on 24 shooting possessions, missed all 3 of his free throws. That perhaps does not portend great things. But Holiday, and more specifically Middleton shot 6 for 23, 0 for 5 from 3, 13 points on 23 shots. Holiday was 7 for 19, 2 for 7 from 3. Those guys are going to be better. They had a bad offensive game against a terrible defensive team. So that should regulate. But they also, I don't know, their defense was okay. Brooklyn missed a lot of shots that were pretty close too. So I don't know that it was all just run bad, really, because Brooklyn started to miss shots too. But man, we'll see. I mean, Milwaukee should be favored. They're the better team if there's no Harden. I feel pretty confident in that. We'll see if Bud buds it. Good on him. Congratulations, man. I don't know how you do it.
Well, it's pretty telling that they're already favored by a point here, is what you said, right? They're favored by a point in a road matchup. So at home, this is going to get to 4 or 5 points here, I think, pretty easily as far as the spread goes. And I think that makes sense without James Harden. I think that's mostly fair. But I think if Bud doesn't make these adjustments, they could also just lose in 5 or 6, even without Harden.
Yep.
That's kind of what happened against Miami last season. Don't you remember that? I know Giannis got hurt, so that obviously had a huge impact on things. But like the dude just refused to make adjustments, and then they were dead.
Oh yeah, it was terrible, and that's why their defense looked to slip a fair amount during the regular season this year. And it was like I forget who figured. I think it was. I mean, I heard it first from Zach Lowe, but it was like, oh, they're switching a ton of stuff, and they're like practicing that, and they're working on that because they know they need to do different things defensively in the playoffs this year. And now they're better off. That is Brooklyn is the prohibitive favorite to be the champion. Still, they're plus 160 and Milwaukee's plus 650. I mean, I get that they're spotted a game.
Yes.
But, you know, the fact that Milwaukee's the favorite in a road game tonight, I don't know. Like, I don't think Harden's coming back this series. But what do I know?
Oof. Yeah, if it's a 2-week timeline, he's probably not. He's probably not. Best case is maybe he catches a game 7. I think you might just be right on this one. I don't know that we see him again. 650 is also a pretty good number here, because I think we mentioned that whoever wins this one, right, should just be the favorites to win the title, right?
Yep.
I guess there is a chance that Utah or the Clippers might be like slight favorites in that scenario. Against Milwaukee specifically, that they might be slight favorites, but I think plus 650 is a pretty darn good number now for Milwaukee.
Ooh, check this one out. I like this. Listen, these are probably all stupid in actuality, like because these big futures ones tend to get really juiced. But Clippers Bucks in the finals plus 950.
Oh wow,
it's kind of fun.
Yeah, that is kind of fun. That is actually quite fun.
Because if either of them can get through their current series, I think they should. Yeah. I mean, Milwaukee will destroy Philly. And
yes,
sorry, Ben, if you're watching.
Yeah,
but that's not going to go well. And then the Clippers, I think, can probably handle the Suns. We'll see.
I'd be surprised. Yeah, I'd be surprised if, like we said, like it'd be pretty surprising if one of these teams, the Clippers or Utah, aren't able to beat Phoenix or Denver. Coming out of the West, I'd feel pretty confident with that. And then, I still feel very similarly about you in terms of whoever wins the Bucks-Nets series should easily be able to get out of the East. And it might not be Philadelphia. It might actually be Atlanta. And those teams are in a different tier, as we had mentioned the last show as well. So they should be able to get out of this. That's a pretty fun one. Plus 950. What's anything that has to deal with Brooklyn in the finals?
They're all short. Like the lowest one is Utah Brooklyn plus 280. Clips Brooklyn is plus 375.
Okay.
Phoenix Brooklyn plus 550. Phoenix Milwaukee is plus 1350. That ain't bad either.
That's not bad either. Yeah, it seems like anything with Milwaukee now that they lost a game.
Right.
Is
yeah, Milwaukee's just getting stretched out. So like there's pretty good value in the Milwaukee ones. Arturo would probably be touting Nuggets Bucks at 35-1.
Wow.
He still loves the Nuggets. Nuggets and Nets would, I'm sure, be his thing, and that's 16-1. Mm-hmm.
That's not too bad. But the thing is that we're pretty short. We're not great on Denver.
I don't respect this Denver team the way that Arturo does. And listen, he's a very sharp basketball guy. Like he knows what he's doing. But his model just loves the Nuggets.
Yeah, plus 9. The first one you mentioned was really was a really good one. I thought Clippers Bucks. No, especially no Harden now. I mean, I know that they lost a game, but like the no Harden thing should also get kind of priced in there. And I don't feel that it is. I think that's going to change right away if Milwaukee wins this game tonight as well.
Kevin Durant is plus 250 to be Finals MVP. That seems a bit short.
That seems a bit short. But he's also, I don't know. Dude, you know what? It feels bad with Brooklyn now that they went down Harden. I guess it was always going to be health, wasn't it? Like Harden going down, KD had to deal with a lot of stuff during the regular season as far as injuries. he goes down, this ship is gonna just crash fast. I mean, I hope that does not happen. I want to see full strength Brooklyn, but now no Harden, and I am afraid of one more injury that this turns really bad in a hurry.
Yep, it really does. Yeah, there's not deep. I mean, Mike James played 30 minutes. It's like, oh yeah, that guy. Did you know he was on the Nets? I don't think I did.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I was not doing rotations much for the season when he was playing.
Yeah, dude, I had to project them in for some of those games, for sure. We're projecting him for a pretty big role tonight, 27 minutes. They are just so thin, and he is a playmaker type.
Yep.
I wouldn't be too surprised.
75% owned guy on DK too, just for what it's worth, because
because of the price tag.
Yeah.
I think Bruce Brown is the other, right, that you had mentioned had some closing potential to him last game. He didn't. He played 21 minutes. Didn't get any closing blowout type of minutes or whatever.
Blake was just too good.
But I think there's like a chance you might see him out there a little bit more too.
Mm-hmm.
Like more than Mike James potentially. But if Mike James is going to play the way he did last game and stuff, I mean, hey, he's gonna earn those minutes for sure.
Yeah,
they don't have any other bodies,
right? Unless they want to get into like Tyler Johnson, TLC, Chioza, those.
Yeah,
that was your end of the bench guys. Claxton was not particularly effective. I do not believe. Oh no, he was plus 11. What?
Yeah, that is actually quite surprising given what Giannis was doing.
Yeah,
when he got in there.
Oh, because his second rotation, he played with. He came in when Giannis left, but it's because his second rotation was against like Forbes, Connaughton, Teague, Drew, and Giannis. And
do you think
they got killed?
You think it's a bad take to short Blake after what he did in that game? Because I think they need him. They certainly need him more now. I think his offense will play a bit more. I think his rates will be a little bit better. No Harden, he's still cheap in showdown and whatnot. Just seems like last game was such a best case scenario for him. It's essentially what I'm saying. So I wouldn't be opposed to shorting him.
No, I think that's definitely the sharp thing. His usage in that game was like 17 or something. It wasn't crazy.
No. But his assist rate could get better.
Yeah, 7 for 12 from the field. 3 assists. I don't know, man. He did turn the ball over a lot. I just think that was kind of him sun running. The thing that was more shocking to me, really, I guess, he had a good DFS game too. But the thing that was shocking to me was Giannis has the ball, is heading towards the post area. Blake's standing there, and Giannis just then does a turnaround jumper, and it's like, dude, really? Why are you scared of this guy? But I don't know.
Well, I think he can. So you'd agree that he can run into some trouble. Blake can run into some trouble if they can just show Giannis hey, just go through the guy. In that situation, Blake's minutes would get a little bit compromised, right? And you would expect DeAndre to be the guy that goes out there and gives him minutes. DeAndre didn't play at all last game, not even in the blowout. Which you don't have to play him in the blowout at all. So I understood that. But are you scared off now of him entirely that you didn't see him play in one game? Because I still have faith in that Giannis will figure this out and DeAndre will play some role in the series at some point.
I think for showdown you can do it. Yeah. I don't know about on the 2-gamer. I think in showdown he'll be very not owned, and I think do I think it's 90% he doesn't play? Yeah, probably. But if he's 2% owned, even in a showdown, then it's they're pretty clearly committed to not playing him. they didn't play him for the last month of the season or so, and
Mm-hmm.
didn't do it in this game, which is when you think they need him the most. But also Blake was good. So like if Giannis is just, I mean, here's the thing: Giannis was good and efficient. Like he's still got his stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a weird game.
And Blake played really well to his credit on really both ends of the floor. So while it might be the sharp thing to do on the DFS side and stuff like that, it does feel tough. Shorting him, given what we saw from him and the fact that Harden's down now. I think that does help him some. I think so. Foul trouble and running bad against Giannis, I still think it exists as well.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, Blake is definitely someone who could get into foul trouble for that. Yeah, Giannis only went to the line 3 times in that game. He was kind of being a baby about going to the rim. Let me actually see what his usage, where his shots were.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's in this game log.
Yeah, I thought Blake did a pretty credible job on him, but like what you're saying in terms of him not attacking Blake was also pretty obvious too throughout the game, and it started pretty early, and then it just kind of never stopped. Feel like that's just a mismatch, and Milwaukee should be able to do something about that because Blake Griffin doesn't have a great reputation of being that on that side of the floor, not a great defender.
No. No, because he's got short arms. He can't like contest there, and he can't jump really anymore either. So it's like he's not going to be one of those dudes. I mean, he's pretty strong still. I guess that was the thing that was like, okay, Giannis is respecting his strength. He's like not just like going to dive into him like with Claxton, which he would. It's like, yeah, good luck, buddy. But I don't know. We shall see what happens. I think it'll be pretty interesting. I'm excited for that game tonight. I'm kind of into the Bucks. I don't know. The bit of fandom that I still have in me is for the Celtics, so I'm like, whatever with Kyrie, But I've actually always kind of liked Durant, but he has been a difficult presence, which I think is fine. This is right; he can do whatever he wants. But then also that war, like when he went and joined the Warriors, like, dude, you just like ruined basketball for the next like 3-5 years, whatever. Like you guys are just gonna walk into the championship. Like this team is stupid stacked. And then Brooklyn, I mean, if they were healthy, it's not super dissimilar now. So it's kind of like, all right, man, like just I don't know, whatever. People can do whatever they want. So good luck to them. But I'm interested in the Bucks here. I thought that they got a little dismissed this year. I get it. Like Giannis, I don't think is probably not one of the first, as I think most people would take if you just like pulled the world of like you're starting, like you're redrafting the entire league and you got this guy to be the franchise anchor. I think most people would take him second after Luka if like starting a franchise, and don't know that I would. I don't love the way you have to build an offense around him. He's never going to be able to shoot. He's not a great passer, and he needs the ball all the time. But like this Bucks team is good and they're fun, and I do kind of enjoy Giannis. So, well,
now that James Harden is out of the equation too, you can't reasonably say, well, Brooklyn has the best, the 2 best players
right
in the series. Now it's really right. It's really they have Durant.
Yep.
Do you rank Durant ahead of Giannis at this point?
Yeah, I think so. But Giannis is clearly ahead of Kyrie. Yeah.
But then Giannis is certainly ahead of Kyrie. And then you get into Drew and Middleton and Kyrie. I think there's a conversation to be had there, but I don't think it's Kyrie slam dunk, 3rd best player. So I do agree with Vegas. I do think Milwaukee should be favored. I certainly think that they probably will be favored the rest of the way, especially with no Harden. I think that does change things quite a bit, especially with the lack of depth that Brooklyn has on this team. And even then, they're still favored to win the title, Right. So it's pretty.
If Milwaukee wins tonight, that Clippers Bucks line is going to go down quite a bit. So yeah, that's a fun one. I'm going to throw $50 on that to see what happens.
Well, I thought the Milwaukee Brooklyn, like their total was also on pace to be broken in that game in the first half of that game, and then it kind of just cratered in the second half, and they would turn it into a blowout. Now I think it's up to 230. It went down to 237 ish with no James Harden in there. Still think it's. I think it's still pretty appropriate for the most part. But I'd still probably take the over.
I think so too, because the big thing is just like nobody. The teams. Where is this? Okay, overall for points. Yeah, I mean Milwaukee had a 100 offensive rating in that game, and Brooklyn had a 112. 112, 114 is about league average. Milwaukee's a very good defense, but they don't make this Brooklyn team a league average offense. They can't turn them into that. And Milwaukee is not a 100 offensive rating team. Like, they're going to hit more shots. They just didn't hit many shots in their first game, so we'll see how it goes.
Brooke also took, I think, like 1 3-pointer in that game. I was a little bit surprised, but I guess when you're doing whatever the hell you want around the rim.
Yeah, he's more valuable around the rim in that series, kind of. Like it's tough for Giannis because you kind of want him to have spacing around him, but like, Brooks a really good. Like he's a good for all people want to joke, like because his rebound totals are generally very low. He's a very useful rebounder. His teams tend to rebound very well when he's on the floor because he's a box out guy, but they can really punish him on the offensive glass. I think that's another way they can go after it.
Well, there were certainly some questions around his value and playing time in this series specifically.
Yep.
You'd agree that I think those got answered in the first game.
Yeah. I mean, unless they go out, like if they put in, if they run the like 5 out, which they can't even do. They don't even have that now because like without Harden. So like, even if they were to play a bunch of Shamet and Mike James or something, like there's not really a scenario where you can just make it so that there is no one for Lopez to guard where he has to be out at the 3-point line. They basically have to play a non-shooter at all times, in which case you should play Brook Lopez because he's an incredible rim protector.
Yeah. I think if there was any question about him in this series, I really do think that got answered last game, and I felt really good already going into that game in terms of where I projected his minutes, and I think that just kind of solidified where we're going to be on him for the rest of the series. Obviously, moving forward, who knows? But in this series, I still feel pretty damn good about him.
Think so too. Appreciate you, Claff. Thanks for saying that. I see you. We love doing it. And to close, Noel's been waiting.
I bet you that troll is still around waiting for us to do the thing.
I'm sure he is. What are you looking at for Chuma's offseason? You grinding tape on him yet?
No, I probably won't be doing that. Did you see that that Steve Clifford and the Magic decided to part ways?
Yeah, which made sense. Didn't we tout that a month ago?
Makes all the sense in the world. I think Clifford is kind of underrated, isn't he?
He's a really good in-game coach, and the Magic need to be like the worst team in the league next year. Like they have to be really bad to start a rebuild. And Clifford's not a very good rebuild type coach.
No, I think I kind of think that he can coach a really good team. I'm serious.
Yeah, I think he could too.
I think that guy's pretty freaking good, man. And had the Magic really competitive for a while there in terms of the East. I mean, in the Eastern Conference, right? So let's not blow it out of proportion, but he did pretty well for them, man. And did well in Charlotte was his other stop, right? He's just not getting good stops. He's not getting good teams.
And I don't know that he's necessarily like the one he's kind of someone you want to put in with a veteran team because he's got that like good defense. He'd be good. Yeah. You put him on that Lakers team. I don't know if it's any different from Frank Vogel.
Sure. I thought it was certainly interesting, but the Magic should definitely they should absolutely head in that direction. They have to tank. They have to be Houston Rockets level of bad next season, and who knows, maybe even beyond that. They are just so bad. They are so bad.
Clifford made Magic teams that were like okay at defense with Nikola Vucevic at center. Like that's a feat.
Yeah, that's a feat, man.
The funniest would be imagine if he ends up in Portland. That's because he's such a defense guy. If he's stuck with that cast of characters.
Well, Dame already said his preferences. I don't think they're hiring anyone else outside of Kidd and Billups. So the dudes that he mentioned, you think that they're gonna do what he wants there. So I'd be surprised.
A lot of buzz around Billups to the Celtics too, and Becky Hammond has gotten some too. We'll see.
Yeah, but I think Clifford will be. He needs to get hired. He needs to get hired.
I think he'll get a job again at some point. Maybe he takes a year off. I don't know. You could put him in Indiana. Like they don't really have the talent to be like awesome, but they're deep. You know, like they're a. Sure. I don't know, they have upside of getting into like the 4 seed and playing the first round at home, but like I don't think they have any realistic shot of getting past like the second round.
Well, I know that the Celtics are also pretty young in terms of their stars in Tatum and Brown, but I wouldn't mind that as a fit. I wouldn't mind that as a fit either. Gonna be really interesting, but I thought the Magic did the right thing, and Chuma, to Noel's freaking point, is certainly one of their. Wouldn't you agree? He's one of their better players. I'd be really interested to see.
I guess.
I mean, dude, for what they have.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'd be interested to see what leap he takes in year 2. I mean, he was a rookie this year, so I'd be pretty interested to see what leap he makes in year 2. It definitely should be an offensive one. I didn't think he had much of an offensive game. Didn't look like a bad defender whatsoever. Listen, if I tell Kyle Kuzma in DFS, how can I not at least give Chuma a mention? I mean, Kyle Kuzma is just freaking horrific, man. Horrific. I don't know what the Lakers are going to do there. I don't know if they have a plan on what to do there, but he was.
Am I making this up, or is he a Puma? Does he have a Puma deal?
Kyle Kuzma?
Yeah.
Maybe you're right. I don't know that much about him, and from that, I know.
Well, it feels like that's true. I know he has a shoe deal. Yeah, he does. He has a Puma deal. You know who else is Puma?
Who
massively overrated guy who had a nice few years and then his career completely went in the tank, especially when he was dating the pole vaulter girl or married to the pole vaulter girl. Ricky Fowler. Wow. Like Kyle Kuzma, Ricky Fowler. That's I feel like there's something to that. Both real handsome dudes,
Kyle Kuzma looked lost in the playoff. I don't know if sometimes it feels like he's not even playing basketball. I just don't understand it. And especially at his age, he should be making leaps, right? He's going back. He's going the opposite way. What a disaster for the Lakers. He ends up being the guy that they pick over some of the other younger dudes. And he couldn't have been worse. I mean, my goodness.
Yeah, he's not good.
Like he's not providing any floor spacing. He wasn't making threes. He's not playmaking. He's not doing anything. I frankly thought he should have gone played in that last game. I mean, it was obvious that he should have gone played. He was just a disaster.
Yeah, I mean, they really should have traded him when they had the chance. I mean, it sort of feels like Tyler Hero is going to have that kind of career where it's like, oh, wow, like a lot of flashes, and it's like this guy could be a good scorer, and then just kind of washes out. I don't know. I mean, whatever. Hero, could be fine. Like, me, I'm not willing to Kuzma, I'm like, yeah, his career he's not a good NBA player. I don't think he really ever was. Kuzma, Hero, the book's still out on. It's like, we don't, maybe he just had a bad year. And maybe if he gets his head right, obviously there were those reports of him, partying too much. Maybe if he gets his shit together and, really focuses on his game, tries to fit in Miami, there's still hope for him. Kuzma, The other thing with Kuzma, he's 2 years older than Brandon Ingram and Lonzo Ball are. He's 26 almost.
It sounds and looks horrible. He's
Kuzma. A year younger than Marcus Smart, who seems like he's 34.
Wow, that's surprising. Yeah, Smart has been around the league for quite a bit, for sure. I think Hero could certainly be a rotational piece. I don't know. I never thought of him as he'll turn into a star. He'll be a star. I don't know about that. but I'm still hopeful that he can be a rotational piece. I thought Riley was really talking him up in terms of he's an asset and stuff like that. I don't know that you can head into the offseason and try to put him in as part of a package. I don't know. Miami's in a weird spot, don't you think? In terms of now they got swept. They didn't get better from the year before to this year, and now how to get better after that seems like they have to make some changes.
I think they've got ways to do it, if I remember correctly. Like a lot of those contracts, maybe Dragic isn't expiring this year. Like there's something big. Like I feel like they were going to be able to have cap space. They were hoping that they were really hoping that the Clips would lose, and then Kawhi would.
Well, I felt like something like that would have to happen because I know Duncan Robinson's also could also potentially be gone because I think his rookie deal's done.
Right, he's going to get paid a lot.
Oh, so so in that scenario, he's not coming back to Miami then, right?
He's an RFA, so we'll see. They'll have the option to match, but I obviously I think they'll try to do something different. Mm-hmm. But yeah, okay. So the big ones are Dragic and Iggy. Iguodala still makes $15 million a year. Dragic at 19.5 and Iguodala at 15 are both team options, so they will decline those.
They got
to get cap space. Yeah,
they have to.
Ariza's $13 million. That's coming off the books. Ryan Anderson's $5 million is not coming off the books. That's still got another year left.
Wow. And then Duncan Robinson RFA, and then Hero obviously is still under contract, right? For
Hero's
the coming year.
Yeah, Hero's still on his rookie deal for one more year.
And then Oladipo's the other who is off the books, correct? Yep. He's just going to be a free agent.
Haslam's off the books.
Man,
Kendrick Nunn is going to be a restricted free agent, or assuming they give him a qualifying offer. I don't know if they will, but he's cheap.
I might bite on that if I'm them. That's a lot. That is a lot of stuff that's happening with Miami. It seems like there could be a decent amount of turnover there.
It's really just Jimmy and Bam who are very expensive. Bam making 28, Jimmy making 36. Okay. And then, they still have to pay Ryan Anderson some money, but then it's like Hero, Precious, and Okpala are the only guarantees.
Yeah. I think that the Depot thing is a real bummer. I know that it's not like you were high on him, but it is a bummer. Like he gets hurt and going into the contract year, and like he's just been hurt. He's just been hurt over the last few years here. So he's definitely not going to be eligible for a max. No one's going to give it to him, I don't think. No. But you might be able to give him a good amount of money for like a 1 or 2 year deal. Like just if I was him, and that's probably the route that I'd take. Maybe the same with Dennis Schroeder. Like these guys that wanted a lot of money, you're going to have to take a shorter deal and kind of prove it in a 1 year sense.
Right. Yeah. Like does Oladipo get a 1-1 for 25 at in for the Knicks? Like they have a ton of cap space next year.
Well, the Knicks would do. Sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
That passes the smell test.
That passes the smell test for sure. I don't mind taking a chance on him for one, what you're saying, like a 1-1, but it would have to make sense money wise, and that's the thing. He's going to have to realize.
He's also He's a horrible fit with the Knicks personnel. Like the Knicks need shooting. They don't need more guys that dribble a lot and take bad isolation plays. Like. They've already got RJ Barrett, they've already got Julius Randle, they've already got Derrick Rose, all these dudes that can't shoot and need the ball in their hands. Like Oladipo is not going to help there.
No, and it's going to be that is a really interesting thing to me in this offseason. What happens with that dude? I honestly think he could reasonably go to something like OKC or even Houston. Not that he will want to, but like he can be kind of a tank commander. I don't know that he will want to.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I was gonna say I don't think Houston and OKC both I think want to be bad again next year, and so you wouldn't. But like Oladipo is kind of bad. Like he can lead an inefficient offense for you. assuming he is still this player, like if he gets better or whatever.
But I'm saying, like, why not? Okay, if your aspirations are to win a title, okay, obviously don't join those teams, right? If your aspiration is to max out on your money and make sure you're making as much as possible in like a year, which I think would be the case for him, dude, I'd go to a horrible team like OKC or Houston. I'd be their featured player.
Right, put up 30 a game
or whatever on a million shots, and then go pursue your deal. I think that's what makes the most sense.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. It's just that teams are considerably more savvy about that stuff now. Like if he puts up, if he's putting up 30 points a game, but with a 90 offensive rating, like I don't think that he's going to get that contract. But
he could also just turn out to be pretty good, right? Like he could turn out to be pretty good again, or just like revive his career altogether. And get that sort of deal from somebody dumb. Detroit would be another landing spot, I think, actually.
Yeah.
Detroit is horrible. They really are horrible. He would have an opportunity. He would have a big opportunity on that team. That's what I think he should do. Obviously, it seemed like he was trying to get as much money as possible. He's not going to get it this year. He's not going to get a max this year, but I think has a chance of being a pretty good player on a bad team.
Yeah, man, he has completely fallen off. Oladipo is just such a wild guy because he really only had one good year.
Yeah, well, then the efficiency has cratered pretty heavily in the last couple.
Very bad. Yeah,
I know it's pretty bad, but then do you cite that to injuries? Do you cite that to this was the player that he always was, type of thing? Maybe a combination of the both.
Yeah,
things.
I mean the 1 year. So
are you referencing the OKC year as being his best one?
The first year in Indy, 17-18.
Gotcha.
Where he shot 67% at the rim. He's a career, 56, 50, lower than that. He's not a good shooter at the rim in his career. But he was 82nd percentile. And then, he shot 43% on long twos, which was a career, was pretty high for him. He did that a couple of years in a row. I don't know, like it's just he's not really a three-point shooter. He's bad at it and he doesn't take them. So people don't guard him out there. And then it's like, I don't know, like could he be Jimmy Butler? Like, is that sort of the upside? I think that is what the upside would be, but he's just not. Like, he's not that good. And he had the one great year. And yeah, it's just like, okay, so let's just, for his career, this is just if percentile rank for his position in effective field goal percentage. 35th percentile, 58th percentile, 61st percentile, 57th percentile. The 1 year in 17-18 of 77th percentile efficiency. And then since then, 33, 18, 29, 22, 7. That's actually all this year because he was on 3 different teams. But, like 20th percentile this year, 20th percentile last year, 30th percentile the year before that. Like, it's just the efficiency is too bad for, like when you're taking that many shots. It just like doesn't help your team.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, he's just, as you said, it doesn't seem like he's very good. At least not anymore at this stage. I would even say like a team like the Lakers or like an actual contender could pick him up and give him a try for not as much money as what we were talking about. And then maybe have him come off the bench or something. But I'm telling you something. I don't think that dude's ready for a bench role either.
No.
I don't think he's bad enough to take on that role either. I think he can still be a pretty decent starter, but it might be, if you're trying to play for a contender, that might just be what it is instead of him starting.
Right. I was going to say the Lakers don't really have space, but yeah, Schroeder's unrestricted. And they probably will not be bringing him back. Harrell has a player option for $10 million. He might pick that up.
He might pick that one up. Yeah. But Schroeder is increasingly looking like they're not going to do that because he wanted a lot of money. Remember, he rejected a deal that they gave to him earlier in the season because he wanted like $100+ million deal, which I don't think is going to happen. Not this year, anyway.
Right. THT is an unrestricted free agent. I don't think I knew that. Caruso is unrestricted.
Yeah.
Keefe, who cares? Drummond, I would say, who cares, is an unrestricted free agent, but they probably want him, which is just
The Lakers.
Wouldn't be surprising, man.
You think they'd test those waters again?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think they'll bring him back. I think they liked it. I don't know. Maybe the front office will, find Jesus in the offseason, but I feel like LeBron and AD like Drummond and wanted him there.
Okay. Well, then he's going to have to accept something that is not anywhere close to a big deal.
Yep.
Right? Like,
probably. I mean, they have bird rights on him, so like they can go over. But yeah, they have a little more cap than I thought because a lot of these dudes are coming off. But pretty much all these dudes that are coming off are very cheap, other than Schroeder. KCP. So basically, for next year, they've got Bron and AD at a ridiculous amounts of money.
Mm-hmm.
KCP at 13. Harrell will pick up his option for 10. They still owe Luol Deng some money, and then Kuzma has his extension kick in next year. This year he made $3.5 million. He gets 2 years, 13 per, and then a player option for a third year at 13, which I think he'll probably take that. Man, Kyle Kuzma is rich, dog. Like,
hey, good for him.
Yeah,
good for him. Bad for the Lakers. Good for him. That's why they were starting to kick the tires on. Well, Dame, Curry, right? Kawhi, I don't know. Just a big free agent going there because it seems like they might have enough space to wiggle that in there. That is also gonna be a really interesting offseason, I think, for the Lakers too, because they're gonna have to rework a lot of those positions. I don't think some of those guys are coming back. They might want Caruso back.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think you can get a max player into this space. I don't have the thing, but if you've got LeBron 41, AD 35, KCP and Kuzma 13 apiece, and Harrell's 10, like I don't think there's a max slot after that.
I don't think there's a max available. So it might just be people talking and wanting to make it happen, but like they can't feasibly make it.
Or you'd have to trade into it. So maybe like a sign and trade. But like what assets do they have for sign? I guess Schroeder.
Yeah, dude, that
like
feels bad.
Yeah, and it's not like you're getting a superstar back for very expensive Dennis Schroeder.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I think that's going to be a really interesting offseason too. For the Lakers, it seems like they're going to have some reshuffling there, and they kind of have to, right, if they want to get back to the promised land.
I suppose. I just don't really think they have a lot of options. I think it's going to be a lot of bringing in vets that want to play with LeBron and AD for not very much money again. We'll see who those are.
And I think Harrell's going to pick that up at 10. Yeah. I would expect him to do. What about Gasol?
Harrell could. Gasol is guaranteed for $2.5 million, so that's nice, actually.
Ooh, that is nice.
Harrell, I think he could get more than $10 million guaranteed on the open market, but his stock is really fallen, and it might be more like a 3 years, 15 prove it thing. I don't know. I don't know. I have a hard time actually figuring that out because he does have a reputation. He won 6th man of the year, but he's not worth $10 million a year.
Right. He might be able to be again like a tank commander guy. Where like you just put him on Cleveland. I don't know. Just think of a team, and he could conceivably get back into like the DFS landscape and pretty consistently be a guy. But
he's a great DFS player for both teams, because he's a really good offensive player. He's just awful defensively. So it's when he's out there, it makes it nice.
I would hope if I'm the Lakers, like he just does the open market and you don't get him back, and then you get Gasol back. I wouldn't want Drummond, but seems like from what you're saying that might be a thing there. But if they want to make something else work in terms of bringing even like a mid-tier guy, just like a mid-tier guy, they're gonna need some of these to come off the books entirely, or they can't make it work.
It's true.
If not, it might just be what you're saying, just vets trying to play with AD and LeBron. But seems like they need more than that, don't they?
Yeah. There'll be a few of those. I mean, they'll be able to bring someone into that Schroeder spot somehow. They'll probably sign and trade Schroeder, but I don't know what you're getting there exactly.
Probably
because they could use another ball handler. Like LeBron is nice and all, but like he's not playing. He's probably not going to play all that many games next year. So like they could use a ball handler for real.
I think Jalen Brunson's going to come off the books for Dallas. I could be wrong on that, but that's what I had heard very recently. I would think Dallas would want him back. But
he barely played in this last series.
Yeah, I know. I was I guess a little surprised. I like Brunson.
Oh, Brunson has a team option for $1.8 million. They are picking that up.
Oh, he has a team option. So it's not a player. They might want to pick that one up because he's worth more than that. He certainly is worth more than that.
Would they be into Schroeder? I mean, could you like? Would they convince themselves that? So Josh Richardson has a player option for $11 million. I think he's gonna pick that up. Would they trade? In a sign and trade like to Jalen Brunson and Josh Richardson for Schroeder? Like that's pretty close salary wise.
I just don't think that makes a lot of sense.
No, I don't think so either. I'm not real big on Schroeder, so like I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think that makes a lot of sense for Dallas. I think one team's winning there.
Yeah, I kind of think Jalen Brunson's a better player than Schroeder.
Yeah, I wouldn't like that if I'm Dallas, and especially because Schroeder wants more money as well is the thing, and he's not. I don't think that he's going to be able to do that right away. Maybe in a year, if he can reestablish his value. Wasn't that a guy that also had COVID, or I'm pretty sure he had like a 2-week off thing because of the health and safety protocols.
Right. He said he didn't get it.
He said he didn't get it.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah.
But
he didn't get it per him, but didn't seem like he was like all that. Like it didn't seem like he was himself after he came back. And then in the playoff series against Phoenix, he was just non-existent for a large portion of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was not great.
Yeah, no, it's going to be tough. I think the Knicks. What about Derrick Rose? Because they might be into that some in terms of if they can't do Derrick Rose again, maybe Schroeder would be a fit.
I guess so
for that.
They've got a lot of cap space.
The Knicks do.
Yeah.
I would think that they want Rose back. I'd be interested in Rose if I was them.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, they have a ton of cap space because it's really all they have next year is like
Randall
at $20 million, Barrett at $8.5, but that's still his rookie deal.
Yeah,
they're still paying Joakim Noah like $6.5 million. Frankie Smoke's team option, they are declining that, or it's qualifying offer. I think they're probably just out on that. And then it's like Obi Toppin and Kevin Knox and Quickly all in this $2 to $5 million.
That's nice. That's nice.
Range, yeah. I think they'd want to bring back Noel. He was a really crucial part of their defense. We'll see what happens with Mitchell Robinson. He is a team option for $2 million. They'll pick that up.
Yeah, but I think you can reasonably get Noel back at a good tag. I'm high on Noel. I know you're high on Noel too. If I was another team, I'd be high on him after what you've seen from him this season with the Knicks, and just beyond that, what you've seen out of Noel and for his career, and then relative to tag, it's always pretty nice, isn't it?
Yeah,
getting Noel for feels like always pennies.
Yeah, man. The Celtics could use Noel. I mean, the problem with him is just that he's like he can't do anything offensively, which is trouble. But he's very good at the center stuff. He makes it really difficult on opposing guards, and that is what you want out of your center. So.
And the Celtics have Rob Williams. Not that he's Noel, but they probably won't want to test those waters because they already have Time Lord.
Right. No,
and they certainly need another. Right. It feels like you'd want another guy, and I think Noel would fit. Just don't know that they'd want that.
You might be right. We'll see. It's going to be the Brad Stevens show. And Tristan Thompson is fully on the books for $10 million next year too. So
God.
Yes, that's the problem for the Celtics, man. That's kind of sad. Is like you kind of blow your window now because like part of the thing that's so valuable about young superstars is that they're on rookie contracts. So like they had Tatum and Brown for so cheap and could add all of these cool pieces around them, like Hayward and Horford and Kyrie and like, you know, Kemba, whatever. Like they tried a bunch of different stuff and just it all kind of sort of flamed out. I mean, whatever, they had a good run, but it was a number of years of Eastern Conference, but it never really felt like they had a chance to actually win the whole thing. And now Tatum and Brown are going to be, you know, $30 million a year for the rest of their careers. And it's like, it's hard to fit in a bunch of other guys around.
Tatum already is, right? In terms of he signed his.
Brown already is. Brown made 25 this year. Tatum's kicks in starting next year. So next year it's Brown at 25.5 and Tatum at 28.1.
And then Kemba?
And Kemba is still 36 million for next year and has a player option for 37.5 million in 22-23. I think he may pick that one up.
That's horrible, man.
It's not good.
This is actually depressing and really bad. Because they're just out of cap at that point. I mean, when you have three, right? They essentially have three of them.
I mean, unless they get off of Kemba or move Marcus, you know, like because they're over. What do they got? Yeah, they're over anyway. They have 132 on the books next year. Like, just
man, that is tough. Are they going to even be able to pick up Fournier?
Not unless they get rid of Smart. I don't think.
Gotcha.
Fournier is unrestricted. Yeah, he's not on the books. I don't think Fournier is going to be crazy expensive, and like it may make sense for them to sign him. He's a pretty decent player, you know. It's a $15 million a year guy probably, but then like they're going to pay the tax like hard, and like I don't know that would necessarily be worth it because I don't think this year's team with Evan Fournier like is exactly a title contender. You know?
No. But I do think that Smart being, I mean, you'd probably agree at this point. He's an asset. No.
Yeah,
I think Marcus Smart is an asset.
A lot of teams could really use him. Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of teams could use him. I think this is probably finally the offseason that they move him.
Oh, you know who could really use him? The Lakers. They need another ball handler. Fits in with the ethos. Like he would actually be a really good fit there.
He would, but he'd have to get traded, right? Yeah, because he's not a free.
He's on the books for 13.8. But I mean, like, do the Celtics end up with Schroeder? That would be gross.
Yeah, but why? Right? Like, why would you do that if you're Boston? Like, why would you do that?
Yeah, I can't imagine that would be the route that they would end up going. But Smart in the Lakers with the Lakers actually would make a lot of sense. Yeah, I think that would be good.
I heard Dallas too, as a potential destination. Didn't hate it either. I mean,
Kemba I actually retweeted this yesterday. Like Keith Smith, an NBA guy, said that it was like Kristaps for Kemba is the trade everyone is going to hate. It's like, yeah, I can see that happening.
I can see that. I could see that. I mean, I think Smart he's like such a good fit on pretty much everywhere, like anywhere.
He is, yeah, because he's a good pass. I mean, the thing with him is he's a little bit, you know, he can get a little thirsty.
Sure.
And he's, you know, because he's not the most efficient offensive player, but you know, if he's next to Luka, I don't think he would as much. But like his defense has slipped a little bit, or it did this year. I don't know, maybe it was injury related, but.
Like, I think when Smart is healthy, let's just say, you know, the healthy best version of Marcus Smart, I think he could be really good for for a team that's trying to like win a championship and stuff. I think Smart fits in like a glove. I think he fits in like a glove.
Yeah.
Which the Celtics at this point, I mean, you'd think with Brown and Tatum that you would want to do that. He is a good fit. It's just that they are probably going to have to move him, which is insane that I'm saying that because I think he's so valuable. But they might have to kick you've always heard that and it never happens. I think this is the offseason that it probably does happen, which makes me kind of sad, but it's a reality. It's a reality.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I've very much always enjoyed Marcus Smart, and it does feel like he's been around forever. Not that long. He was drafted in 2014, I believe.
Yeah.
and that was just another like the Ainge draft picks. Like I feel like people shit on those, and it's like, are you joking me? Like he's amazing at the top of the draft anyway. Like he always picks the best guy. Like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, let us not forget, were both the third pick, and if you redid either of their classes, like they're definitely number one now.
Mm-hmm.
Jaylen Brown goes ahead of Ben Simmons and Brandon Ingram and Jamal Murray now, like easily. That he's the number one pick from that draft
for sure.
So
Smart
was like the sixth pick, and he has had a nice career.
For sure. Here's a good one to end it. Aaron is asking on chat, Ayan or MPJ tonight for showdown?
That's Ayton. I strongly prefer Ayton.
Yeah, I knew you'd say that. And I am also very much into Mr. Ayan myself. Projection standpoint, he seems pretty clear ahead. It's like 4 or 5 points on the median, like 4. I shouldn't say 5, but more like 4.5. Once you start to get into 90th percentile stuff, Ayan gets like he separates even more. Like it starts to get it to 5. He's
interesting.
Yeah, which I think you would have thought it would be the other way, right? MPJ
right, because
would
Porter, you see he scored 40 real points games and put up 55. But
yeah, I would have thought the same thing. But looking at this stuff from a projection standpoint, I think Ayan just makes so much sense. I think the only thing there is if there's a pretty big gap in ownership between these guys, and you think it'd be Ayan over Porter pretty significantly. Is that where you're leaning?
You said Ayton's projection is like 4 points higher than Porter's. Then
it is. Yeah, it is. And also in 90, like it doesn't matter which lever you pick, he ends up being ahead by like 4 or 5.
Yeah, I think Porter's going to have a pretty tough series.
Okay. He's also, by the way, he's also more expensive. Not by much on FanDuel, but he's a little bit more expensive than Ayan. On DraftKings, they're essentially the same price.
Right? Yeah,
they're essentially the same price. And by the way, that was on FanDuel that I was looking at. So on DraftKings, in terms of a difference, starts to get closer. It's more like 2.5.
Okay.
On the 90th, on median, Ayan is still ahead by 3. So I think your intuition was right. That MPJ would get closer on the 90th stuff.
We also may be lower on MPJ than other sites because I'm looking at it now, and on DraftKings, where you saying they're pretty much the same price.
Yeah,
MPJ is actually a little bit higher for P-own. And on DraftKings, because of all the MPE, like positional stuff doesn't really matter. You can kind of play whoever you want, within reason, but that doesn't factor into it as much. So it really is just like this projection versus this projection. And so that would lead me to believe that the rest of the industry is a little higher on Porter than we are. And we might be higher on Ayton. But
gotcha. Well, there is a difference in the minutes. In terms of we're projecting Ayan at 37.5, Michael Porter at 35.3. And I think I think Denver's going to have to play him. I think Denver's going to have to play Porter a good amount of minutes.
They both got really scary downside because Ayton could get in
foul trouble,
really bad foul trouble, and Porter can just disappear because everything he does is from scoring. So like if his shot's not falling, it's not going to be fun.
Yeah, I'd still pick Ayan. I'd lean Ayan pretty confidently, but I'd be interested to see how different their ownership is. If it's close, Ayan, I'd so much want Ayan in that situation. If it's not, and Porter just ends up significantly lower owned in showdown, I wouldn't mind making that adjustment in game 2. But for tonight, I'd go Ayan.
Yep. I'm with you. All right, man. I think that should do it. We should probably get out of here. We got casual 2 hours. You don't have to. Thank you if you did watch the whole thing. You don't have to. We just, again, enjoyed bullshitting about basketball because it's what we do kind of even if we're not on camera. So it's like might as well put it on here sometimes. So
right.
All right, thanks everyone for checking in. We'll do another of these at least to preview the conference finals. But maybe we'll do a basketball show a week for the next little bit. I don't know. We'll kind of play it by ear, and obviously we'll have all the projections and sims and peons for anything 2+ games. We can't do that for Showdown. And we got all the stuff. Anything you want to say in closing, my man?
Thinking. Well, I'm definitely very excited about the next couple series here in the West. I certainly think that I'm going to be watching Game 2 pretty closely tonight between Milwaukee and Brooklyn. I'd be really interested to see if Bud can make those adjustments that he needs to make. It seems like if you're a bettor, I want to be on the Milwaukee side without Harden out there now. If you don't see Bud making these adjustments tonight, I'd feel much better about Brooklyn.
Yeah, they're done. If he takes out Giannis and Lopez at the same time, 5 minutes into the game again, it's just like, all right, well, good try.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, GG. I think because at this point, if they lose tonight, they're down 0-2. I think it's GG's. So I would I'd watch closely tonight on what type of adjustments he makes on the betting side of things.
I think that's right. And if that happens, then get your what is it? Suns and Nets was like an okay long shot. I feel like the Suns are the third in the West, and I think they should be, but I think they would be favored. Utah or Phoenix would be Utah or the Clips would be favored to beat them. But I think the Suns are going to really handle Denver no problem, and so they're going to be fun. Whatever. That's why I don't think they necessarily should be the longest of the three. I mean, they probably should be, but not by as much as they are, I guess, if that makes sense.
But Denver was the longest, right? Denver against Brooklyn in terms of the Western Conference teams.
Yeah.
Was the longest. And
so just to win the Western Conference, for what it's worth, it's Utah plus 130, Clips plus 190, Phoenix plus 300, and then Denver plus 9-1.
Gotcha. Well, if you're a Denver optimist, you could also get into that too. You could also get into those. And what would that fall under? Is it team? It's not team futures.
I was under Bovada futures. Yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha. I would certainly be interested in that, but I'd be paying close attention to what happens tonight between Milwaukee and Brooklyn, because I think those adjustments have to happen right away, or I don't have any confidence in Milwaukee moving forward.
Yep. That's a pretty good one. LA Clippers to beat Milwaukee Bucks 20-1. Jam it. That's the actual outcome. That's pretty juicy, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably still stupid. Anyway, all right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in and checking this out, and we will talk to you all soon. Good luck with all of your assorted degenerative hobbies.